Evie, you're nothing but dead weight. Without a job and no family, what chance do you have? You're out, and take your pity party with you," Jackson snapped, his blue eyes cold and unyielding. He stood at the bedroom door, arms crossed, as I stuffed clothes into an old suitcase. The room felt colder, with his words hanging in the air. I glanced up and met his stare, my hands trembling, but my voice steady. "You think you can just dispose of me? You'll regret this." Jackson's mother, Diane, entered the room, her presence as uninviting as ever. "Oh, Evelyn, how dramatic. It's about time you faced reality. Jackson's too good for you," she said, sneering. I took a deep breath, letting their words wash over me. Diane had always been a looming presence controlling Jackson since I'd met him. It wasn't until recently that her true nature had come to light, and now she was a full-blown storm in our lives. Jackson moved closer, his voice a low growl. "This isn't about my mother, Evelyn. You're the one who's failed here. You lost your job, and you've been nothing but a burden." I swung the suitcase shut with a decisive snap. "A burden? You knew I was between jobs, Jackson. That didn't bother you until now. What changed?" His face twisted into an ugly smirk. "You became useless." I felt a pang of sorrow but pushed it aside. "Is that what you think? That I'm only worth something if I'm bringing in money? That's low, even for you." Diane stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Get out while you can still leave with your dignity, Evelyn." I grabbed the suitcase and stood tall. "I didn't know dignity was something you were familiar with, Diane." As I walked past them, I felt Jackson's eyes bore into my back. His sharp voice followed me down the hallway. "Don't think you can come crawling back. You've made your choice." I didn't look back. Instead, I headed straight to the front door and out into the chilled evening air. With every step away from that house, I felt a mix of fear and freedom fighting for dominance within me. Hours later, I found myself sitting on a worn-out bench at the nearby park, the suitcase by my side. The night whispered around me, filled with uncertainty, but also a strange new sense of possibility. I fished my phone from my pocket and scrolled through my contacts. There was only one person who might understand what I was going through. "Mark," I said into the phone, my voice shaking. "It's Evelyn. Can we talk?" There was a pause before he answered, but when he did, his voice was a welcomed calm. "Evelyn? What happened?" I swallowed hard, the words catching in my throat. "Jackson kicked me out, said I was useless." Mark's sigh was heavy. "Meet me at the diner by Main Street. We'll figure something out." As I walked to the diner, I replayed the events of the night. Jackson's transformation, Diane's manipulations, all the pieces started falling into place. By the time I reached the brightly lit diner, I knew one thing: I wasn't going back. Mark was already seated when I arrived, looking more disheveled than usual but with a determined glint in his eyes. "Evelyn," he said softly, standing up to pull me into a hug, "you deserve better than them." We sat down, and through our conversation, it became clear how deeply Diane's control ran in their family. But what struck me most was Mark's quiet strength and his willingness to help. In that moment, hope flickered back to life within me. "You think they'll change?" I asked, sipping the hot coffee the waitress had brought over. "No," Mark said firmly. "But we don't have to stay and let it break us. There's a way out, Evelyn, and together we can find it." Hope, that was what I needed. Tomorrow I'd start fresh. For now, I'd rest, knowing I wasn't alone anymore. Mark and I sat in that small diner for hours, the night deepening outside the window. I stirred my third cup of coffee aimlessly, the warm liquid offering little comfort against the storm of emotions brewing inside. "Diane has always been like this," Mark said, breaking the silence. "She's a master manipulator. I've seen it all my life." I looked up at him, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice. "How did you deal with it?" A half smile tugged at his lips. "I became a recluse, hid myself away in my work. It was easier." I noticed the shadows under his eyes, the weariness in his posture. "And Jackson? He's just like her now." Mark nodded, his gaze hardening. "I tried to warn you, Evelyn. I guess you couldn't see it back then." "Not until it was too late," I admitted, the weight of regret sitting heavy on my shoulders. He leaned back, folding his arms across his chest. "You don't have to face them alone anymore. We can figure out a way to get back at them, but without stooping to their level." My eyes met his, a spark of determination growing between us. "What do you have in mind?" Mark pulled out a small notebook from his jacket and placed it on the table between us. "I've been keeping track of a few things," he said, opening it to reveal pages of notes and diagrams. "Mom has her hands in a lot of shady deals. Jackson's no better. He's been sabotaging your job prospects to keep you dependent." I felt a surge of anger. "That explains why every offer I got fell through." Mark's eyes softened. "You deserve better, Evelyn. Let's start by getting out from under their thumb." "I have contacts. I can get us both jobs." "Both?" I echoed. He nodded. "I'm done hiding. They won't change, and I refuse to play by their rules anymore. Maybe we can start fresh together." Hope intertwined with my anger, fueling my resolve. "What's the plan, Mark?" His eyes brightened as he outlined his strategy. We would gather evidence of Diane and Jackson's misdeeds, make our exit, and ensure they couldn't touch us again. It was risky, but it was a way forward. "Do you think it'll work?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "We'll make it work. You won't have to face them alone." The sincerity in his eyes was a balm to my wounded heart. The fear of facing Diane and Jackson alone faded, replaced by a fierce determination to reclaim my life. The next morning, fueled by our newfound alliance, we began putting our plan into motion. Mark introduced me to his tech-savvy world, where we could uncover and document the manipulations that had kept me in the dark for so long. As we worked side by side, I found solace in our shared purpose. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope that we could outmaneuver Diane and Jackson, that we could build something better. "Remember, Evelyn, the key is patience," Mark said one evening, his face illuminated by the glow of his computer screen. "We gather everything, then we strike." "And when we do," I replied, my voice steady, "they won't know what hit them." Our conversations weren't just about tactics and evidence. We talked about dreams, our hopes for the future, slowly knitting together a bond that was built on mutual respect and understanding. One evening, as we packed some of my things, Mark looked at me seriously. "Evelyn, no matter what happens, promise me you won't look back." I met his gaze, feeling the weight of his words. "I promise, Mark. We're in this together." We were more than just two people escaping a toxic past. We were partners, united in our resolve to reclaim our lives from those who had wronged us. And with each step we took, the future seemed a little brighter. The days turned into weeks as Mark and I meticulously gathered evidence. Each piece we uncovered added fuel to our determination. Jackson and Diane remained oblivious, wrapped up in their own scheming. Mark's attentiveness and tech skills revealed a side of him I never knew existed, creating a bond I hadn't expected. One evening, Mark came into the room with a grin. "Evelyn, you won't believe what I found." I looked up from the laptop where I was compiling our findings. "What is it?" He handed me a stack of papers. Financial records. Mom's been funneling money from some of Jackson's business deals into her own accounts. If we can expose this, it'll ruin them. My eyes widened as I scanned the papers. "This is huge, Mark. How did you get these?" He shrugged. "Years of watching her. I knew where to look." We spent hours cross-referencing the records with other documents we had collected. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit together perfectly. It was time. The following morning, while Jackson was out and Diane was having lunch with some of her society friends, Mark and I put our plan into action. We copied all the files onto a secure drive and prepared to confront Jackson and Diane. Standing in the kitchen, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. "We do this together," Mark said, placing a hand on my shoulder. I nodded. "Together." Jackson stumbled into the house later, clearly having had one too many drinks. He sneered at me as soon as he saw us standing there with a stack of papers. "What are you two conspiring about now?" "Jackson," I said, my voice steady, "we know everything. Your sabotage, Diane's embezzlement, it's over." His face contorted with rage. "You insolent little—" Mark stepped forward, cutting him off. "No, Jackson. You don't get to talk to her that way anymore. We have all the evidence we need. If you try anything, we'll expose you both." Diane walked in just in time to hear Mark's threat. Her face paled. "What do you think you're doing, Mark? I raised you better than this." Mark's eyes blazed with defiance. "You raised me to be a pawn in your game. Not anymore." Diane scoffed, but there was fear in her eyes. "And you think anyone will believe you?" I held up the stack of papers. "We have everything." Financial records, emails, even video proof. It's enough to destroy you. Jackson lunged forward, yes, but Mark blocked him effortlessly. Don't try it, Jackson. It's done. Diane's composure cracked as she realized the gravity of the situation. You'll regret this, Mark. Both of you. You'll come crawling back. I stepped in front of Mark, meeting Diane's gaze head-on. We're leaving, Diane, and we're never looking back. Mark took my hand and guided me outside, leaving them stunned. We headed to a small, quiet park where we sat, catching our breath and letting the reality of what we'd accomplished sink in. We did it, I said softly, looking at Mark. We're free. He smiled, squeezing my hand. This is just the beginning, Evelyn. We will get our lives back and more. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Together, Mark and I had faced the storm, and now we stood stronger for it. We were ready to build a new life, free from manipulation and control. And this time, nothing would hold us back. The days following our confrontation with Jackson and Diane were tense. Mark and I moved quickly, staying one step ahead. We rented a small apartment on the other side of town, a modest and functional place that marked the beginning of our new lives. One evening, as we unpacked dishes, Mark said, "We should finalize our plan to leave town. I've made some calls. We have job offers lined up." I set down a plate, feeling the weight of the past finally lifting. "Mark, thank you for everything. I don't know where I'd be without you." "You'd have found your way," he replied with a soft smile. "But I'm glad we did this together." We spent our nights discussing our future, forming strategies to secure our positions in the startup company Mark had connections with. Our shared resolve fueled our preparations, and we worked tirelessly to ensure we left no loose ends. One night, the tension at home reached a boiling point. Jackson returned from another bender, his eyes wild with anger as he stumbled into the kitchen where I was making a late-night snack. "I come home and this is how you repay me," he slurred. "You're nothing." I turned to face him, my voice calm but firm. "I won't be used anymore, Jackson. I'm done." He staggered forward, but Mark appeared in the doorway, cutting him off with a steady hand on his chest. "Back off, Jackson. This ends now." Jackson's eyes darted between us, rage simmering beneath the haze of alcohol. "You think you can just walk away? After everything?" "Yes," Mark said, his tone unyielding. "We're leaving, and you can't stop us." Jackson's face twisted into a sneer. "You'll regret this, both of you." Without another word, Mark guided me out of the kitchen, leaving Jackson to stew in his vitriol. We made our way to our room, hearts pounding but united in our determination. "Tomorrow," Mark said quietly, "we move out, no more waiting." The next morning, we packed our things with purposeful haste. By noon, everything was ready. Our escape was set. As we walked through the front door for the last time, Diane stood in the hallway, her eyes cold and calculating. Running away? How typical. I squared my shoulders, meeting her stare. "No, Diane, we're starting over. Without you." "You both think you're so clever," she hissed. "You'll come crawling back. Don't think you can survive without us." Mark inclined his head slightly. "Watch us." With that, we stepped out into the sunshine, our bags in hand and a newfound freedom in our hearts. The sense of liberation was exhilarating, and I couldn't help but smile as we walked away from the toxicity that had held us down for too long. Mark drove us to our new apartment, a place filled with fresh starts and endless possibilities. As we unpacked, I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders. We were free, and nothing could hold us back now. By evening, we had settled in. Mark set up his computer in one corner while I organized the kitchen. We moved with a lightness that had been missing for months. Mark looked over at me, a smile playing on his lips. "This is it, Evelyn, a new chapter." I nodded, feeling a warmth spread through me. Together, nothing can stop us. As night fell, we sat on the small balcony, looking out at the bustling city below. Our hearts were lighter, our future brighter. We had faced the storm and come out stronger, ready to embrace the new life we had worked so hard to build. Mark and I moved swiftly, the anticipation of freedom invigorating our every step. Our new apartment felt like a sanctuary. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We started fresh, working tirelessly to secure our positions with Mark's startup contact. One crisp morning, the unfamiliar sound of the doorbell echoed through our apartment. We exchanged a wary glance before Mark opened the door, revealing a courier with a large envelope. "For Evelyn Clark," the courier said, holding out the package. I took it with trembling hands and thanked him. As I tore it open, Mark watched me, concern etched into his features. Inside was a letter from Jackson, dripping with venom. "Evie, running away won't save you from the truth. You've made enemies, and you'll come to regret this pathetic attempt at freedom." My hands tightened around the letter. "He's not done with us, Mark." Mark's jaw clenched. We knew they wouldn't give up easily. We must stay ahead and stay strong. That day, we doubled our efforts. Mark's connections in the tech world paid off, and soon we were both employed at a promising startup. The work was challenging but rewarding, and every success felt like a small victory over our past. Late one night, after a long day, Mark and I sat on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below. He handed me a glass of wine, and we toasted to our progress. "To new beginnings," Mark said, his eyes reflecting the city's glow. "To freedom," I added, taking a sip. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it and gasped. It was a photo of Diane, taken from somewhere in the shadows. Mark leaned over to look. "What the?" The message read, "Don't think I won't find you." A chill ran down my spine, but Mark's presence was a solid anchor. He took my phone, his fingers tapping rapidly as he traced the source of the message. "Diane's reaching," he said after a moment. "Probably hired someone to scare you. We've got to be smarter." The following days were tense, each new obstacle a reminder of the struggle we had left behind. But with every challenge, Mark and I grew closer, our bond strengthening as we supported one another. One evening, as we finalized some work reports, Mark looked up from his computer. "Evelyn, it's time to make this official. We need to cut ties completely." He showed me the document on his screen, a detailed declaration to HR, distancing ourselves from any business or personal connections to Jackson and Diane. "This is our statement," he said, placing a reassuring hand on mine. "Once this is filed, they can't touch us." I signed without hesitation. "Let's do it." We sent the document, and for the first time I felt a true sense of liberation. Jackson and Diane's shadows couldn't extend here. Later, as we sat on the couch, I whispered, "Mark, thank you for everything." He pulled me close, his voice soft. "We did this together, Evelyn. Never forget that." Our escape had been daring, and the journey ahead still held uncertainties, but our new life was taking shape, free from past manipulations. As we drifted into a contented silence, the night felt full of promise. We had faced the worst, and now, with each other's support, we were ready to embrace whatever the future held. Together, we stood resilient and unbroken, our new adventure just beginning. Mark and I spent the next few months fully immersed in our new jobs. The startup atmosphere was exhilarating, and we quickly found our rhythm. Each success felt like a triumph over our past, setting the stage for a brighter future. One afternoon, while sorting through some old boxes we had brought from the house, I stumbled upon something that made my heart skip a beat. Jackson's old diary. I picked it up, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and dread. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist opening it. Flipping through the pages, one entry caught my eye. It read, "She's easy to manipulate. Mom always said, keep her busy with no time to think." My blood ran cold. I showed the entry to Mark, who read it and shook his head in disgust. They were working together the entire time. Unbelievable. "They never cared about anything but control," I said, the reality of their betrayal cutting deep. Mark's expression hardened. "We have to confront them, Evelyn. With this, they'll have no defense." The next day, armed with the evidence we had meticulously gathered and the damning diary, we prepared to face Jackson and Diane one last time. We drove to their house, determined to put an end to their manipulations. When we arrived, Jackson was in the driveway, looking more disheveled than ever. He sneered as we approached. "Come crawling back, have you?" Mark stepped forward, his tone icy. "We're not here to beg, Jackson. We're here to end this." Diane came out, her eyes narrowing as she saw us. "What do you want?" I threw the diary at Jackson's feet. "Here's proof of your lies and manipulations. We have everything. Financial records, emails, and this." Jackson's face paled as he picked up the diary, flipping through the incriminating pages. "This won't hold up. It's your word against ours." Mark smiled grimly, pulling out a USB drive. "Not when we expose all your dirty dealings to the community. Diane's shady deals, Jackson's sabotage, it's all here. Diane's composure cracked. You wouldn't dare. Oh, we would, I said firmly, and we will. Your reign over us is over. Jackson lunged forward, but Mark held him back with a single firm hand. Don't. You dare. As we turned to leave, Diane shouted after us. You'll regret this. You're nothing without us. I paused and looked over my shoulder. Maybe we were nothing with you, but now we're free. Back in the car, Mark and I shared a triumphant smile. The weight of years of manipulation had finally lifted. We had done it. We had faced the storm and come out stronger. The following days were a whirlwind. The evidence we provided caused a stir in the community. Diane and Jackson's reputation was tarnished, leading to social ostracism. Their business dealings crumbled, leaving them isolated and desperate. Meanwhile, Mark and I flourished. With the dark cloud of our past finally dissipating, we threw ourselves into our work, gaining success and recognition. Our bond deepened, built on respect and shared experiences. One evening, as we celebrated a major project milestone, Mark raised his glass to mine. To us and to never looking back. I clinked my glass to his. To a future where nothing can stop us. As we sipped our drinks, I felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. The trials we had faced only made us stronger, and now nothing stood in our way. We had gained our freedom, and with it, the promise of a brighter future. Together, we were unstoppable. Mark and I couldn't believe the speed at which everything fell apart for Jackson and Diane. Their social standing crumbled, and they were no longer the influential figures they once were. Watching it happen wasn't just satisfying, it felt like justice. One afternoon, Mark called me from work. Evelyn, it's time to confront them once and for all. We've got enough to make this public. I hesitated, the thought of facing them again daunting. Are you sure? This could get ugly. He took a deep breath. It's the final step. Are you with me? I squared my shoulders, determination flooding my veins. Absolutely, let's do it. We met at our old home, the place still as unwelcoming as ever. Diane and Jackson were sitting in the living room, their expressions sour when they saw us. What are you doing here? Diane demanded, her voice cold. We're here to end this, Mark replied, pulling out his phone. Evelyn and I have more evidence, and this time we're going public. Jackson's face turned purple with rage. You both think you can destroy us? I stepped forward, my voice steady. We already have. The community knows. Your empire is crumbling. This ends now. Diane's eyes narrowed. You think you're so clever, don't you? This will ruin you too. Mark's eyes glinted with triumph. We've covered our tracks. There's nothing left to link us to this. And by the way, the authorities are on their way. Financial fraud, embezzlement. Your sins are catching up. The color drained from Diane's face. You'll pay for this. I handed them a folder. In case you need to jog your memory, I said, trying to control the shaking in my hands. Everything's in there. Reports, emails, bank statements. They rifled through the papers, disbelief and panic growing on their faces. Suddenly, Jackson lunged at Mark, his fists clenched. Mark sidestepped him easily, pushing him back. Enough, Jackson! It's over! Mark shouted, his voice echoing through the room. The sound of sirens in the distance drowned out Diane's next words. She glared at us, hatred burning in her eyes. You've signed your death warrants. Mark took my hand, squeezing it reassuringly. No, Diane, we've saved ourselves. This is justice. The police arrived, apprehending Jackson and Diane while we stood in the background, relief washing over me. One of the officers nodded at us, signaling that our part in this nightmare was finally over. Back at our apartment, the weight finally lifted. Mark and I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but victorious. The tension of the past few months unraveled, replaced by a sense of hard-earned peace. Evelyn, you were incredible today, Mark said, pulling me close. So were you. We did it, I replied, leaning into him. I've been gathering evidence against them for years, he admitted softly, just waiting for the right moment. Every lie, every scam, I documented it all. I looked at him, astonished. You planned this all along? He nodded. I knew they'd eventually push too far. You gave me the courage to act. Tears welled in my eyes. Thank you, Mark, for everything. He smiled, wiping a tear from my cheek. We make a great team, Evelyn. We shared a quiet moment, the storm behind us, our future clear. The weight of our collective strength felt reassuring, the foundation of trust solid and unshakable. As we clinked our glasses that night, we toasted to our unexpected revenge and the life we had reclaimed. The dark chapters had closed, and in their place, we penned a story of resilience and triumph. "No more looking back," I said firmly. "To a future where nothing can stop us," Mark agreed, his eyes filled with hope. We watched the city lights from our balcony, the horizon bright with promise. Though we bore the scars of our past, we knew they only made us stronger. Together, our journey had just begun, and nothing would hold us back. Mark and I flourished in our new lives, leaving the shadows of Jackson and Diane far behind. Our startup was thriving, and with each passing day, we felt more at peace and more in control of our destiny. One evening, as we settled on the couch, Mark turned to me with a soft smile. "Evelyn, we've built something incredible here, and it's only the beginning." I nestled into his embrace, feeling the warmth of our shared achievements. I couldn't agree more. We've come so far. Our bond had evolved from partnership to something deeper. We moved seamlessly between our professional and personal lives, unfazed by the past. Our bond was built on resilience and filled with trust. One day, a surprise visitor knocked on our door. Mark opened it to reveal an older woman looking frail and defeated. It was Diane. "Mark, Evelyn, may I come in?" she asked, her voice cracking. Mark's face hardened. "What do you want, Diane?" She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I need to talk, please." We reluctantly let her in, watching her like hawks as she sat down. Her usual air of superiority was gone, replaced by a humbled demeanor. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness," Diane began, her eyes avoiding ours, "but I'm here to tell you, I was wrong." I exchanged a glance with Mark before responding. "Why now, Diane? Why after everything?" She looked up, tears brimming. "I've lost everything. Jackson's in prison, our reputation is in ruins. I realize now, too late, how wrong I was. You both deserve better." Her words hung in the air, a mixture of sincerity and desperation. Mark remained silent, his jaw clenched. "You manipulated us, tore us down," I said, my voice firm. "What makes you think we'll believe you now?" Diane wiped her tears. "I'm not asking for anything, I just wanted you to know. I regret the pain I caused. Truly." The room fell silent, heavy with unspoken emotions. Finally, Mark spoke, his voice resolute. "Diane, we've moved on. Your apology doesn't change the past, but maybe it's a step toward healing, for you." She nodded, a shadow of relief crossing her face. "Thank you, that's more than I deserve." We escorted her to the door, watching as she walked away, her figure diminished by the weight of her actions. As we closed the door, I felt a mix of emotions. Sorrow for the time lost, relief for the journey ahead. "That was unexpected," I said quietly. Mark wrapped his arms around me. "It's over now, Evelyn. Completely." In the following months, Mark and I continued to grow. Our company expanded, and so did our life together. We found joy in simple moments, relishing in the peace we had earned. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our balcony, Mark turned to me with a soft smile. "Evelyn, we did it. We created the life we wanted." I looked into his eyes, filled with gratitude. Together, we're unstoppable. We toasted to our future, each sip a promise of the life we'd build. As we stood there, the city sprawling beneath us, I felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Our journey had been tough, but it had shaped us into who we were, resilient, united, and free. The dark days were behind us, and our future was bright with promise. Together, we had triumphed against the odds, and now nothing could hold us back. Amidst the challenges and battles, we had found each other, and in that, we found everything we needed. As the night enveloped us, Mark whispered, "Here's to a brighter future." I smiled, feeling the truth in his words. Together, nothing can stop us.